Welcome to another edition of SchoolOwnerTalk.com. Now here's your host, Dwayne and Allie.
Hello, Dwayne Brummett here with Allie Alberigo, SchoolOwnerTalk.com. Good morning, sir. Nice to be with you.
Good to be with you too, Dwayne. It's great to always have someone positive to talk to.
Well, I try. Sometimes I'm not positive, but I try.
So now I want the listeners that are watching to know that we do not plan this out. This is we've talked about that already, right? That Clint Eastwood movie, Heartbreak Ridge, where we wear the same clothes and we don't know how. I mean, you're all the way in Illinois.
I was gonna say, I think every third episode we end up wearing the same clothes. Yeah, and then we say something about it. So
yeah, it's wild, right? So it's wacky. It just seems that we're kind of in tune, even though we're so far from each other, right?
Yeah. By the way, did you get any of the flooding when Ida ended up hitting you?
We did. I personally didn't. My house seems to be very high in the neighborhood, and our neighborhood is far from the ocean where, a lot of the flooding took place by us. But I was like, people, it was weird because the news scares the hell out of everybody. So all my friends from around the world were texting me like, you okay? Like my main student, he might even come on today from Bermuda. He's like, are you okay? I saw the news and like literally houses were getting ripped off the ground. And I'm like, no, dude, none of that happened, right? It was just waves and flooding and so on. But I saw pictures of cop cars in the city, Manhattan, that were like up to the windows of the cars. The subways were flooding again and all of that stuff. So it's kind of scary to know that we could be like in, a Louisiana kind of flood situation nowadays, and I'm on Long Island, so we're surrounded by ocean or bay. But we've never had water come up near us. My next door neighbor, because they're lower, their whole backyard was under about like 6 inches of water, but I had nothing in my yard.
Oh, wow. Okay.
My pool was almost overflowing just from all the rain. It literally filled up, like no doubt, like 8.5 inches of rainwater in that period of time.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Crazy, right? Yeah. Scary.
So if you know that you're going to get a lot and you know that there's potential flooding, I don't know how long it would take you to drain your pool. If it'd take 2 days to drain your pool, but at least that would save part of the water hitting your house, right?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I'm really high. So like when I redid my entire yard, I raised my grade like maybe 8 or 10 inches and it pitches out. Probably why my neighbors get more flooding than I do. But I would never really want them to know that would get mad at me. But I just had pitched my yard the way it was supposed to be pitched,
Yep.
Especially putting in the pool because the pool was a little higher. So I had to level the yard and bring in topsoil. But yeah, it would definitely help me from being flooded because just the way it's pitched off.
Yeah. So you want to segue into what we're going to talk about today? You want to just tell the listeners, what the title is and the brief overview before we hop in?
Well, I think that, with all the topics that we cover, we're always kind of taking it from a business perspective. How do I do this system, or how do I overcome a sales objection, or how do I onboard my clients more? And I think a very neglected topic that most school owners kind of feel left out is like the mental side of running a school, right? And I think that that's a big draw and drain on all of us. Like, what are our feelings that we have to sort through and go through on the day-to-day basis by running a martial arts school? Everyone just thinks that you run a school and you charge tuition and you teach them. And as long as you're doing things right, then everything is just going to be okay. And then we use words like retention and, attrition and income and expenses. But there's a mental component that really is, a tough one, especially on newer school owners. And we were just chatting about this as we have been around for a long enough period of time, we tend to get hardened or we get more experience on dealing with certain situations, right?
Agreed. Yeah, definitely. I don't know about you. When I first started, when someone wasn't happy, when someone quit, I took it personally.
Yeah.
And I definitely don't know if it's because I've been beaten up over the years and callous and done wrong over the years that it doesn't affect me like that anymore.
Well, you know what? It's kind of interesting that you say that, but that's true though. We have, you do get beaten up, right? You do get, you put through these personal emotional feelings, because it's a very personal thing. Like, I don't care who they are, even if you buy a franchise school, and it's put together in a box for you and you take it over, it becomes your baby. But if you built a school from scratch, name, brand, systems, and it becomes yours, it's literally like your baby. You love it. You want people to be, if you have any pride in your school, you want people to love what you do, right? You want them to be over the moon happy. You want them to get the best results and all of those things. And when something doesn't go according to those standards or that goal or desire, it is definitely a major issue. And you take it. It's hard not to take it personally, right?
Yeah, I think at least in the beginning it is. I don't know about anymore if I take it as personal as I used to.
Well, that's a good thing. That's what we should talk about, because I think that, I'm much better too. And you and I, before we started this call, we chatted. I mean, we've been through this. I've been doing this for 30 years. I've had my heart broken, for a long period of time, where, you get attached to, let's say, a young kid. You see them grow from 3 years old. They're like 13 years old. They're a black belt with you. And I have a person that I can think of right now that trained with me since she was 3, all the way up until she went away to college, and literally with me at my dojo every single day, 5 days a week, a staple in my school, and then went away to college. I haven't heard from her ever again. Not a hello, Shihan, hey, I hope you're doing well. Merry Christmas. I saw it was your birthday. Nothing. And then finally I heard from that person maybe about a year ago, and it was like, hey, can you sign a recommendation letter for me for a new job? And I'm like, wow, of course. But wouldn't it have been nice for you to at least say hello over the last 4 years? You literally disappeared. Oh, I was so busy. I'm so busy. I'm like, no, you're not. You could have. And that's a personal thing for me. Like, it really bothers me because I've always done the right thing, overextended myself, gave people so much. And then, flavor of the month, you're no longer in their lives and they don't even remember. It's almost like they don't even remember you.
Yeah. But I take some personal responsibility. I'm not saying you're not doing this. I'm just saying for me, I take some personal responsibility with some of those people, and I didn't follow up with them and see how they were doing and wish them a happy birthday and all those other things. So I know, and I'm not saying that was you. I'm saying I did not do those things.
Yeah. So, but here's the but for that, right? Like, so Dwayne, you're the father and you raise your son and he goes away to college, and you don't stay in touch as much as maybe he thinks you should. Do you still think that son should check in with you periodically?
Yeah, but I have a part to play.
I know we all do, right? But at the same time, though, like, a hello here or there would be nice. They quit and they moved away. They went away to college. I think that it's important for them to stay in touch as well, like, and say hello. So I think that it would be nice. Like, I'm not saying they have to.
Right.
I'm saying it would be nice for that to happen.
Yeah, I guess what I'm getting at is, I used to think that a relationship was 50-50. I don't believe that anymore. I think it's 100-100.
Yeah. What does that mean? To explain that to the listeners.
Well, my relationship with you, I own 100% of it. It's not 50-50. It's like, hey, I do half of this podcast. You do the other half of it. No. I do 100% of this podcast. You also do 100% of this podcast. Now, does that mean that there's different things that we do? Absolutely. But it's 100%. And in order to, if I only give you 50% of me in the podcast and vice versa, we're not going to be any good. Like, there's going to be problems. And so I believe that in a relationship, it's not 50-50, it's 100%.
Right.
We're all in or we're not all in. And so I understand that it would be nice if our students would reach back out to us and let us know what's going on. I don't expect that anymore. And unless I'm going to do the work to follow up with them and see how they're doing, who was it? I think you talked about John Gaston, right? He sends care packages to some of the ones that went to college and those type of things. You know what I mean? Like, that's reaching out.
Yeah, that's my other friend, John Oschlager. But you're right. John Gason, I'm probably sure, does that too. He's amazing with his students as well. What I found, though, I mean, I guess I'm a little bit more traditional too. Like as far as the old traditional ways, like your sensei is your sensei. You always pay homage and reverence to your teacher. They're your teacher. You're never gonna. You never. Well, this is a Japanese way that's being killed off and is dying a quick death. Is that you never ever can ever equal percentage wise the amount of dedication that you should have to your teacher. In other words, it is never going to be, or it shouldn't be, 100-100 or 50-50. It should always be the student giving 80% and the teacher giving 20, because over the years that teacher has given you everything that you ever needed to become who you are. Like we never said, okay, we won't give you this because you're not giving me that. We always gave, pushed, stayed on top of, connected with, and so on. I'll give you an example. I had just recently a situation where a parent was supposed to renew their agreement, and they were with me. They're with me for a long time. They're black belts in my school, and so when they sign up for my contract for black belt, they have to do a 2-year agreement. 1 year is probationary, the other year is to learn their material, and then they get to a test for their official shodan. So they sign a 2-year agreement. So anyway, somehow whoever renewed the agreement wrote 27 months instead of 24 months, right? So when I said, hey, it expires on October, they said, yeah, but it says 27 months. Like now we're haggling over wording. So I'm like, okay, well, the only difference is that we should renew it now. And then she says, yeah, but then you're going to charge me $9 more a month. And that's 3 months that I'm going to miss out. I'll have to pay $30. I'm like, wow, like for $30, like you're going to hassle with me over renewing an agreement. And now this is a person who's a black belt that's been with me for years, that is on the demo team, that, you know, does all these special events and gets special classes from my other instructor. So that kind of frustrates me as a teacher, because I feel like it's $30. Like, you know, I had a guy that had COVID when the pandemic hit. He hasn't trained in a year. So I sent him a renewal message. I said, this is going to be a weird renewal. You haven't trained in over a year. Do you want me to just cancel the membership and not renew it? He's like, no, I'm coming back. Renew it. And I'm like, how about I give you 4 months credit? Because you don't have to give me anything. I don't care. I go, but I'm going to give you 4 months for free, so you won't have to pay until January. But this guy paid for a year and didn't come once and had no qualm whatsoever. Like the difference of people, it's sometimes mind-boggling to me. And it's the ones you put the most time in, it seems, and give the most to, are the ones that give you the most headaches.
Well, and I wonder though too if those aren't almost always the case. So what I mean by that is the individuals that you have to give more time and attention to and walk them to the trough, right, show them how to actually bend over and drink from it,
right,
are the ones that are the neediest, and therefore they are the ones that are, I don't want to say the stingiest, but they're less grateful.
Yeah.
And the ones that don't need the hand holding as much are the ones that, you know, really are I don't want to say the easiest, but they're the ones that are usually the most grateful. You know, it's kind of like when I there's only been, I think, 3 times in my life that I've missed my haircut appointment.
Okay.
And each of those times when I was told that, oh, hey, you were supposed to be here, everything okay?
Yeah.
I've got in either that day or the next day and paid her for the service, even though I was not there.
Okay.
Now that's not a prerequisite. And she's like, oh, no, you don't have to do that. I said, yeah, you would have gotten paid by somebody else.
Right.
I mean, I just know that that's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
You know, and I've gone to this lady probably, I don't know, 18 years, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so I wonder.
I guess my point is the people that you have to handhold,
yeah,
those are usually and you say I'm giving everything to them. I wonder if we were to pull off and go, you know, look, you got to tie your shoe now on your own.
Right.
And, you know, yes, that might mean that they might quit more or earlier than they would have. Right. But I think in the end, they would end up being less headaches, or they would rise up to the challenge and then still be less headaches.
Yeah. I find like when I was the old hard-nosed traditionalist, like back in the day, if I had a seminar, I mean, maybe at the time I had 50 students, I would expect everyone to be there. even unless they had a wedding or a funeral, they were going to be at this event. And then I'd say to people like, hey, we're going to a tournament. Oh, yeah, we don't want to do that. Oh, okay. Then you don't have to come back and train anymore. How's that sound? What do you mean? Well, listen, we go as a group, we're a family, we're this, we're that, and everyone would participate because I was a hard on them and didn't allow. Then as I grew, I couldn't, I didn't feel like doing that pressure. And you always, people resist. And then, the bigger you get, people will resist and gather in groups to hate you and all that stuff. So I kind of over the years have like pulled back on that type of mentality. But it was so nice when, we would go to a seminar and the whole dojo was there together. It was so nice when we go to a tournament, we're all there together. Like I remember once going to a tournament, but the tournament didn't have events that we ran, that we competed in, which was our biggest event is self-defense. So I called my black belts up and I said, we're not going to compete, but I want you all to come and help and judge. I had like 15 of my black belts show up with me, and we all had lunch together, and we all judged together, and we came back and hung out together. It was a very tightly knit thing, but it wasn't like I had to beg. They were just very dedicated and loyal. I think that society now is they don't understand that. In Japanese, it's called giri, that loyalty. Maybe it's the way we teach them. Maybe it's because we give them space, or maybe it's because that just society doesn't understand that mindset.
Well, but then I also think that's also, partly due to, you taking the reins off a little bit and not making because if you were to talk to, we had David Nemiroff on, and I would venture to say that his school's probably like that, where it's still the old school mentality because he's not released that,
Right.
So
like for example, last night I had a parent come in. They got their friend to sign up, and the friend tells them they're Spanish speaking, so I can't speak to them. So the one parent is talking to the mom. She's like, "Oh yeah, she doesn't want to come anymore." I go, "You've only been coming for 4 months. You're in a year contract. You can't stop. Like I'm not letting people out now. I used to be very kind of understanding over the last year and a half. But now I'm like, I already told them it's a yearly commitment. It's this. We went over that. I explained it to them that they can't cancel. They can't quit. And then they're just like, yeah, he doesn't want to go. And I'm like, too bad. You're in a contract. You're going to go. That's the way you have to be. And but I'm sure that if they don't want to, they'll just cancel their credit card. They'll walk away, whatever the case may be. And then I'm going to have to deal with the chasing after, which I'm not going to do. And, threats, I'm not going to do, collections. I'm not going to do that anymore. I used to do it. I no longer have the energy for it and so on.
Yep. No, I got you. So those are some of the headaches that we deal with, right?
So go ahead.
Yeah. And I was going to say, those aren't, okay, for me, that's why I decided not to do contracts.
Right.
In the beginning. Now, once you get into our leadership program, you are making a commitment to black belt. There is a contract with that, but they've been in my program for a year before they even get that opportunity. So making another 2-year agreement after they've already been in it 1 year is not that hard.
Gotcha. So let me ask you this though. When we started, you said, like I've been hardened to this, I've calloused a little, like, what made it, what's some advice you could give to school owners, whether old or new? Like one of my guys who works with me, he puts a lot of personal time into a certain select group of people. And, some of them have been just like disappointing him lately. So it's really taken the steam, but he gets very attached and personal. And I had a long talk with him yesterday and I said, listen, I know it's hard not to. It's hard not to give your full 100% emotional connection to people. But I don't do that. I haven't done that in a long time. I said, even with him, he's been with me for over 15 years. I have people that have been with me over 25 years. I will not give them my personal soul anymore because I end up always getting hurt. So how did you get past that? Like, what did you do mentally to shift from that for the listeners to be able to help them through this?
Well, unfortunately, it was time and it was getting beat up over and over again, So I don't know if I have any words of wisdom except for the fact that, look, don't take things personal. You do the best that you can. You do right by the studio. You do right by the person to the best of your ability. And I think, that made me actually go back and have rules. And so what I would what I would do is I would encourage everyone to go back if you don't have, policy and procedures and those type of things, even the strike program that we have and all of that, if you don't have those things, I would say, hey, go back and this is a automated one. They got a new service here allowing that to just pop up there.
Oh, yeah. Oh, cool.
But anyways, I would go back and listen to some of our other podcasts and, about like rules and those type of things, because you definitely want to have policy and procedures. And then you want to make sure that they understand what they are. Now, whether or not you're not going to make them read them, you can't make them read it. If they read it, they read it. You give them to them, you give it to them, you ask them to read it, you have them sign off that they actually read it. That's the best that you can do with regards to those things. So, I would say, look, you go out there and you perform your best every single day, and you're not, this is what I was doing. Like, I did it because I needed the accolades. I think my self-esteem was low enough that I love the accolades and Mr. Brummett, you're, great. And you're a bag of chips and all this other stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I've gotten to a point now where I don't need those. Right. I know my abilities. I know I'm going to make the best decision. And I also know that if I screw it up, I'm going to apologize.
Right.
And so if someone in all of that can't show me grace, or still wants to be mean, nasty, and ugly, I don't need them at the studio anymore.
Right.
Right. And I think, part of that was getting stepped on, having to kick out people, having to fire employees. All of that grew me into those type of things.
Right.
So I don't know that there's any fast tracking into that. I would just say, don't wear your heart on your sleeve. Give everything you got, but don't expect anything back. I mean, it is truly the giving to give and not to get.
Right.
And if you go into that giving to give and not to get, and like truly do that, you're not ever going to be disappointed. And I think the other thing is, always look at your students as you're going to give them the 100%, but expect nothing in return.
Yeah, I find that, I agree with that's the best way to live your life and be protected, right? However, I find that it's such a hard thing as a martial artist, a traditional martial artist, is to constantly allow people to take and not give back. Like, that's almost like not the lesson in the martial arts, right? It's almost like if we don't expect, then maybe we're not teaching the way we should be. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah, but here's the other thing is we can't make them have the aha moment and get the lesson. We can teach the lesson. We can't make them grasp it. Again, it goes back to, I can bring them to the trough. I can show them how to drink. I cannot make them drink.
Right.
And so, you can approach those situations and say, hey, look, I don't know if you saw it from this angle, but this is how this could be taken by what you said or what you did. Even if you don't want to put yourself in there and say, well, this is how I felt when you did X, Y, or Z. Like, I mean, you don't want to say that. You could come of it from like a third party perspective and introduce that to them to hopefully wake them up to whatever they were doing or weren't doing.
Right.
To kind of do that. I know that, part of those I would always do now that I have scripts, just because over the years I've created scripts. But when situations would pop up or there was things that I was learning, be it personal development or whatever, at the time, I would make that a mat chat.
Right.
And then I would introduce that concept to everybody. And, hopefully the one or two people or whatever that were there would actually pick up on it. And, but I can't make them pick up on it.
Yeah.
How many martial arts school owners that you've coached, right? And then I would guarantee that out of 100%, 20% of that 100% did phenomenal and 80% did nothing.
Yeah. I get it. I definitely agree with you. And it's kind of like another friend of mine had once said to me, if you have no expectations, there's no way you're ever going to be let down. So, but at the same time, I think it's our goal to have expectations, right? Because if we don't, and we don't push people past the where that they feel that they could go, then they're never truly going to get the lesson. But then again, another part of me says, why bother if it's going to make me stressed out?
Well, I
And
think you can have standards and not have expectations.
yeah,
These are the standards, but you don't have to expect that they're going to meet those standards. That's going to be up to them to actually meet those standards. And then you're not disappointed, because then you're putting it on the onus on them. It's kind of like, I'm teaching the white belts right now. I love teaching the white belts.
right,
Just,
right.
7 and up. I go in one night a week, or excuse me, one class every single day, Monday through Thursday. That's it. And I go in there and I teach them, and then, we'll do a few moves of whatever, XYZ, let's say front kick, right? I'm showing the front kick. We do the front kick, and then I say, all right, now practice it on your own. And then I literally walk in front of the parents and say, hey, parents, just so you know, this is how we do it here. I'm going to teach them. I'm going to show them how to do it. I'm going to do a few reps with them, and then I want them to do it on their own, because I need to see that they know how to self-practice. They also know how to self-reflect. So if they're doing it incorrectly, they'll go, oh yeah, it's supposed to be done this way, and yeah. I need to see when I correct them, how they take the correction.
Yeah.
And see if they actually implement it. I said, because if they're not willing to do those things, they're not going to progress.
Well, yeah, that's a great question. So I taught last night my advanced class, and I get so frustrated where you correct somebody or a group of people a certain specific way to stand or a certain specific way to strike, and they do it for a second while you're watching, and then you turn around and they just go back to doing it the sloppy, lazy way. So last night I said, it's not my fault if you're going to be mediocre. And that's really all you're going to be, is mediocre, if you don't take my suggestions to heart and actually care about fixing it and getting better. So I said, I can only make you do what you'll allow me to. I can't force you to let me force you. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't make any sense, though, that people, I don't know if the martial arts these days is as interested at becoming amazing as we were when we were coming up.
Well, yeah, and I've told my students, and then sometimes when I get frustrated, like you're talking about right there, I will introduce to them the concept of 2 ranks. And see, there's 2 ranks where you're at right now, right? And they're like, what do you mean there's 2 ranks? Well, you have the rank of red belt, but you also have the rank of your ability. And some red belts have this much ability, way up here. And then other red belts have this much ability way down here. And I said, what's more important to you, the color of your belt or the ability of being able to do the techniques? I said, that's really the question you got to ask yourself. So I said, if you're only in this for the color of your belt, you can do things halfway and get to the next color.
Yeah.
But if you want to do it for the ability and every single time be improving, yes, you might be a red belt, but you really look like a black belt.
Right.
That's the question you need to ask yourself.
I like that. I just wrote that down. I love that. That's excellent. I mean, yeah, I always say to people, I always say, what you do in the dojo doesn't mean you're going to do it outside. And if you practice at 50% here, you're going to probably perform at 30% in a real situation. So I said, you better do 80, 90% here, so that when you're at 70% in the street, you're able to defend yourself pretty darn well. So what I find interesting, I wrote an article years ago, and I talked about it on Facebook, called Giri. Giri is a Japanese word for loyalty. And then Stephen Hayes, world famous Stephen Hayes, which we've interviewed before, he wrote that society is more of a gimme rather than a Giri society. And I quoted him on that. And then I had another friend who's an old school traditional martial artist. He said that with rank comes privilege, and some might understand with privilege comes responsibility, but with responsibility comes duty. and duty evolves to a deep obligation, which lays the foundation for the culmination of Giri. One might note that I've changed from English to Japanese because I do so because no English word is good enough to properly translate the word of Giri and do it any justice. So in simple layman's terms, he would explain Giri as the debt that you accept, even with the knowledge that you will never pay this debt until your last breathing, living day. And you, even at that point, you will only have scratched the surface and not paid enough. Giri is what one might owe their parents, their grandparents, their country, and how they should honor their sensei. And as a footnote, I firmly believe that a sensei, part of the Giri, is to teach those people and spread the art and share what you learned with others. So that was what they wrote about that. And I find that most people don't quite understand or will ever understand that or even care to understand it. That's not what this is for them, right?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. So yeah, I mean, mentally taxing is running a school, being in charge of a school, being, but that's what we signed up for. I'm not complaining, but that's what we signed up for, right?
I don't know. Did we know that? Like when we signed up for it, did we, like most school owners don't, that's why young people start a school and they end up selling it or quitting or closing it up because they just can't take it.
There wasn't a ceremony for better or worse or sick or poor or, till death do us part. But I mean, that's really what it was. I mean, I knew that there was going to be some challenges. Did I know the extent of any of the challenges? Absolutely not. But I knew that there was going to be some challenges, in any relationship, there's challenges.
Right. Yeah, that's for sure. Even a marriage or a friendship, right? There's always going to be those challenges.
Yeah. I mean, I went out to dinner last night with one of my best friends. We lift on Tuesday, Thursday nights, and we were not eating on Thursday like we normally do. We did it today or yesterday. And him and I don't agree on everything. And we've had little tiffs. But we're still friends.
Right.
I still got his back. He's got mine. We don't have to agree on everything,
But that's interesting. So let's unpack that because you got his back and he's got yours, even that you have disagreements. However, how quickly has a person brought you from hero to zero in your school? You're like the champion. You've changed their kids' lives. They love you. You're the best. You're amazing, Master Brummett. You're unbelievable. We quit and we don't like it anymore. I can't believe you didn't promote Johnny. I'm out of here. You suck. Like that's how fast, a snap of the fingers, that could happen. How do you deal with stuff like that?
Wow. I guess back in the day, let's talk about that first because now is totally different. But back in the day, I would have wanted to have a meeting. I would have, said, hey, what can I do? Let me do private lessons. Let me catch him up. Let me, bend over backwards. But that's why I have put in rules to follow, so let's just take the failing the test, right? We didn't pass little Johnny. So one is we have skill stripes they have to earn and even go to the test.
Right.
So they don't earn enough skill stripes. They can't even go to a test that they are going to flunk anyways.
Right.
Now, do I have some people say, well, hey, look, they didn't earn their stripes. It's not fair that they can't go to their test or whatever. Certainly, and in fact, that's why we issue them private lessons prior to that test to see if we can get them caught up or learn their information so that they can earn their stripes so that they can go to the test. So we've done our due diligence. It's not like we didn't do our part. Okay. Then let's say they earn their skill stripes, but they go to the graduation and they still flunk.
Right.
Again, we go back and say, look, I understand they knew it. They knew the X, Y, and Z and the ABC, and they earned their stripes. But I can assure you that, they barely knew it. We let them have a chance. We encouraged them to keep on practicing, and yet they weren't able to perform at the graduation.
Yeah.
And I say they got to do that belt test over again. That's the rule. And in fact, in one of my videos, it's the policy and procedure videos that they get, before they even become a student. I actually bring that objection up. in that video. And I let them know that if they don't pass their stripe test or their actual graduation test, they don't get that belt, and they got to do that belt over again. And I even say in the video, look, I have, that's when I go, that's when you as a parent, in most cases, are not going to be happy with me.
Right.
But that's the standard. And so understand that, yes, you are going to have to pay another 3 months of your child, in most parents' terms, learning the same information. Well,
Right.
they didn't learn it
Right.
the first time, or they didn't learn it well enough to be able to progress. So yes, just like if you flunked a course in college, you'll have to pay for that course over again.
So yeah,
And so, I mean, I basically say, hey, look, don't sign up if you're not willing to sign on.
right. So I love that too. That's a great mentality. Like I find, like, so for example, if you're a football player and you're on the football team and you can't catch the ball as a wide receiver or whatever your position is, are they going to keep playing you? No, you're going to be cut. So you're going to have to prove yourself over and over and over again to do that. So I guess in the martial arts, somehow they believe because they're paying us money, that money is a guarantee that they'll, and I think people think this about the school system now too, public schools and private schools and colleges, that if they're making those payments, they're guaranteed an education.
Well, it's not even just that, because even travel baseball, soccer, all, I mean, there's travel teams for everything. Like my son was in travel volleyball.
Right.
There were some times that he wasn't out on the floor. I wasn't the parent that was like, well, I'm paying, look, I paid $3,000 or, $4,000 for him to be on this sport this season, blah, 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 blah. I looked at my son when he said that, look, I'm better than so-and-so, or I work harder than so-and-so. I go, well, apparently your coach doesn't see that.
Right.
So you got to find out what exactly he or she's looking for, and you better make sure that you're doing it. Otherwise you're not playing.
Right.
Like, and there was no way I'd go up to that coach and say, why aren't you playing my kid?
Right.
My kid had to learn how to navigate that. He had to learn how to fight for his position. I would be enabling him if I, did all that for him.
Right.
And so I have back to standards. We have a standard. I expect no one, unless they are willing to meet those standards and move forward to the next level.
Right.
And so I just try to overcome all the objections I can in the beginning. Again, I can't force them to watch and read everything.
Right.
We stick to our standards now. And I'll tell you what, since I put Master Bean in charge, we've stuck to the standards a lot better.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you know what? If I remember, I had a lady who was working my front desk. She also ran a daycare during the day, right?
Right.
And she was one of the best employees that I had at that front desk, because when somebody was late on their payment, she'd get them to pay. When if I were to call, I'd get the runaround.
Right.
Oh, can you help me, Mr. Brummett? Blah, 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 blah. She can't give freebies. She can't give reductions. Why? Because it isn't her business. And so her and I talked about that. And I said, you know what, Dawn? I said, I get that. Like if I was calling your daycare clients for you saying, hey, you didn't pay Dawn this week, we need to, get a new card, blah, 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 blah. I said, that would be easy for me.
Yeah.
So having somebody handle that isn't me.
Right.
So that's what I'm saying is Mr. Bean is not me. I made the rules, but Mr. Bean is just following them, and he cannot break them.
Yeah.
Like we had a guy show up with his grandkid for the graduation last month. They came late. Right?
Yeah.
So Mr. Bean said, I'm sorry, the graduation's already started. We don't allow them coming in for the graduation late. And he was like, what? He goes, yeah, that's the rule. And he said, but we do have a graduation tomorrow at this time, or we can schedule a private lesson graduation. Which would you like to do? He goes, well, I'll come in tomorrow. He said, okay. So Mr. Bean did the graduation, came back the next day, right? Guess what? Guy's late again. Blames it. And I'm sure this was the case, blames it on the railroad track that we have there, which I'm sure that probably happened.
Yeah.
Right? But Mr. Bean said, I'm sorry, we'll have to schedule a private lesson now. He goes, I want to speak to a manager. This guy told Bean that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Bean goes, I am the manager. Like what he was looking for was me.
Right.
But Bean goes, I am the manager. And that
Yeah.
guy was just like, he goes, let's go to the office and we'll have her set up a private lesson. And this was their last month anyways. They were going to be done anyhow, but it was like he follows the system.
Yeah, and I find that interesting too, like with even with my school with uniforms, like people will literally show up in regular street clothes and not have their gi, which in our school, when they join, they don't have any uniform. When they become a member, they get sweats and a t-shirt. They have to earn their gi. Then they have to earn their white belt. So they'll show up at a white belt without anything and they'll just be in street clothes. I'm going like, who are you? And it's like, oh, it's Damien. I'm like, Damien, you're a white belt, aren't you? Yeah. Well, where is it? Oh, my mom said it was in the laundry. I'm like, Damien, I'm going to give you one pass. The next time you show up, you're not allowed to do class, period. That's the way it is. And, people like, the parents go, it's my fault. I go, okay, well, it's still your fault. It's somebody's fault. But if he doesn't have his uniform, he can't come to class. When people get mad at me for being a hard nose, like it just blows me away. I would never send my daughter to dance to a recital, rehearsal, or whatever it might have been without her equipment. I remember going to Bermuda to visit my dojo down there, and the guy who ran the school with me down there took me to his son's Little League baseball game. The majority of people on the team forgot their mitts. They didn't even have uniforms, their mitts and their hats. So between every inning, they'd have to exchange equipment. Oh, who lent it to Johnny? Who lent it to Joey? Okay, let's share. And I'm like, they couldn't even, I thought it was the United States and just my students, but even in Bermuda, they can't even remember 2 items to a baseball game, their mitt and their hat. Like, how do you not do that? And then expect people to allow that standard? But this is why the dumbing down of society, everything is okay. As long as you have an excuse, it's okay. You could show up late to your test. As long as you have an excuse, your uniform is dirty, you don't have to wear a uniform. You're exempt from that kind of responsibility. I mean, even in the military nowadays, if you don't do your job that well, they let you out of the military. It used to be they used to be scrubbing toilets with your toothbrush and running with a knapsack with cement in it. Now it's like, okay, buddy, this isn't good. We'll let you go home.
Well, let me show you. Let me state the bright side of all of this, right? Yeah. That our schools, martial arts can be a beacon of light in this society that has no rules or no thought of responsibility being important,
right?
And so all we have to do is teach our students to have a smidgen of responsibility, a smidgen of leadership, and they're going to be far and away better than the majority of their peers. So society has actually made not only our job maybe a little bit more harder, but has actually made us more appealing.
Right.
I mean, as long as we position ourselves and do the correct things in our schools.
Yeah.
So, we opened up that other location, right?
Yeah. How's that going? Good.
Yeah. And I had, so my instructor up there, Mr. Kent, Master Kent is up there. And so he called me after the first day and I talked to him and he said, we only had one trial for the 5 and 6-year-old class, but there was, obviously not a second person there, and so the mom said, we're just not going to do it. We're going to wait until there's, a couple more people in the class, and the kid was excited about doing it, right?
Right.
And so Master Ken said, okay, but your kid, he's excited, he wants to do it, and she's like, no, we're going to wait. He said, okay, I'll text you when we have a few more students in that class, right? Okay. So Kent told me all that, and I'm like, okay, you did great. And he's like, yeah, but she didn't let him do class, and he was taking it personally.
Yeah.
And I said, look, let me just tell you, number one, you did the right thing. Number two, I said, this is going to be the mildest disappointment that you're ever going to have.
Yeah.
In running a school.
Right.
I said, and he goes, well, that surely isn't cheering me up. And I I go, I just want to be realistic to you. This is nothing in comparison to the other things that you're going to face. I said, so just look at this as, all right, I followed the process. I did what I was supposed to do. Expect nothing. You know, you hope for the best, but you expect nothing.
Yeah.
And I said, and then move forward. And so even he was disappointed. You know what I mean?
No, I understand. It definitely is. And that's why I love this call, because I'm hoping that people out there that are listening to this are going, wow, other people experience what I experience, you know, the hardships, the fear, you know, like I'll give you another example. I spoke to one of my coaching clients today and he's like, oh my God, I'm getting nervous. Attendance has been slow this week. And I'm like, dude, it's not you. You didn't do anything wrong. It's not like all of a sudden you suck and people are quitting. Whatever's going on, and it could be various things, whether back to school, you know, politics and fear, right? Like all these things could have a lot to do with people attending class, right? You know, even just adjusting to the new school year, which I find to be such a stupid thing, in my opinion. Like, you know, like, oh, we're going to see how it goes with the schedule before we bring them. Like, have them go to school and adjust to school, all while training in the martial arts, so you'd have a better mindset to adjust to school. Like, but people are so soft, and it's like paper tigers in the world at this day and age, where everybody is so fluffy and always worried like their kids are gonna, I don't know, turn out to be axe murderers because they didn't have enough time off after class. Like, it just blows me away. Like, I love that with those old, and by the way, I have a lot of Latino people in my school. They have that old school mentality. Like, you get in class and shut up. Not like, come on, buddy, you could do it. I had to work with you. Come on, give mommy a hug. They're like, now, like, get in there and take your shoes off and get on. Like, the kid just turns around and does it. Like, the mom puts the fear into them. Like, you're listening and I don't care what you have to say, like that kind of thing. Yep. I had a dad the other day, nice guy. I like him so much that I would hope that he would sign up his kid, because I like the dad too. But the dad was like, yeah, we don't know if we want to commit him. He's only 4.5 to a whole year, you know? So I'm like, but why wouldn't you? You know what I mean? Like, why wouldn't you commit him? If you feel that this is good for him and he does it well, why not commit him now, so that, you know, when he's 5, he's amazing and he'll be better at sports, better at school. But I could tell, like, the dad's like, yeah, we don't want to force him. And at that point, like, I was ready to start to change his mind and explain to him. And then something in me just shut off. And I'm like, I get it. I totally understand. I apologize. You know, I hope that, you know, you'll change your mind, but we'd love to have your kid. But I gave up trying to convince people. Like, I'm almost like, you're not the right family for us if you can't at least at minimum commit to a year in your program.
So, all right. So let's quickly talk about that. That's not what this call is about. But my question would then be, what can you do in the front end, one, to attract those types of customers,
right,
that are willing to commit? 2, ones that maybe that come in that aren't willing to commit yet, what can you do to convince them that, you know, quote unquote, making their kid do something is a good thing?
Yeah.
Like, those are the questions that I would ask myself in order to then, you know, put those in the videos or the physical material that you give out, or whatever it is. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know, because I've talked to people before too, and I would say, well, school is good for your kid, right? Yeah. You know, and we would never let them quit school. Well, no, I would never let them quit school. Okay. You say that martial arts is, you know, good for your kid. So I guess, you know, one, I think, would be, if we're going to kind of undress this a little bit, trying to find out what their why is. Why do they want their child into the martial arts? And then from finding out what that why is, one, did we meet what they were looking for with that why? And if they don't do this and, quote unquote, like they're saying, force them, like, you got to get them to change it. You know, okay, so for instance, I sent you my sales script. So,
yeah, I love that, by the way. That came out excellent.
And so you saw what I did with regards to cost and price, and turned it into an investment.
Yep.
That's the same thing we're talking about here, where this needs to be presented in a way that it's not I'm making my kid do this. It's that, you know, my kid gets to do this and receive these other benefits
Right.
by doing it. You see where I'm going with that. So I mean,
do.
I know I went off the path, but yeah.
No, but I do see what you're saying. But what if he wants to quit in 5 months, though?
Well, again, that's where you mean that's what they say to you.
Yeah, but I'm just doing it. I'm playing devil's advocate with you, and that's what they'll
Right.
say. Well, yeah, he wants to do it now, and I love it. And what if he wants to quit in 5 months? I know he's 4. And I let 4-year-olds make decisions, but like, well, what if he wants to quit? And I go, well, you talk to us, we'll motivate him. We'll do whatever we can to get him excited. Yeah, but we don't want to force him, to do anything that he doesn't want to do. And I'm going like, and then my response is, but you force him to do things every day. And you force him to go to bed, brush his teeth, eat his food, be polite, not throw things, right? Yeah, but that's different. Like, I don't want him to, and I think parents' fear is like, if they do force them, then they're going to be hated for forcing their kids. Like I always say about my daughter, Kiara's 22 this Sunday. And I say, my daughter she did martial arts her whole life. She didn't really have a choice. Like if she didn't do martial arts, she was going to come with me anyway when I went, and she would have sat and watched. So she had to do it while we were there. But I said, I never feared that my daughter was going to turn into an axe murderer, a stripper, a drug addict, because I put so much time and effort into her.
Or he would hate you.
Yeah, or hate me. I was going to be the exact opposite. Like yesterday, my daughter's like, do you want to go to the school? We'll just go there and take care. Like she just right away, like steps up, right? That's her loyalty and dedication. That's what she's learned over years of martial art training. So I try to instill that into parents, but sometimes they're in this society where they just don't want to they don't want to do that anymore. It's not the way things are done. It's not the old school parenting.
Right. And I do think that, at that point, when you've done all you can do, they're not the right person.
Right. It's true. Sometimes that is the case, and it's sad though, because, again, another frustration for school owners, and we're running out of time. Maybe we could chat about this. It's always like that revolving door mentality. It's always about that, in through the front door, out through the back door, fill the bucket and there's holes in the bucket. So like we work so hard, we get a bunch of gains, our enrollment goes up, and then we have the next month, it drops because 10 people quit that we didn't expect, and that's another emotional roller coaster as well, where we're like, we're so, oh God, we have to constantly churn to run the school and succeed. Like I'll give you an example. My good buddy Randy, I don't know if you ever met him. He's in West Virginia. He has a tactical firearms training facility.
Yeah, I think we met in Vegas. Remember?
You might have, yeah. And then, but he used to run the schools, and then he got involved with this tactical firearms, and he had military contracts. So he goes, I don't have to motivate them. They're forced to be there. And if they don't listen to me, I'm kicking them out, and they're going to fail the test and not get their job. So they have to listen. So he got a taste of not having that, oh, come on, rah, rah, rah. It was just like forced, and they were paying good money to send their people to him. And it was a whole different mindset. But we're always in that emotional hamster wheel where like, let's stay positive. Let's keep the classes so exciting. And then they quit anyway sometimes, right? Like, so what do you do? What's your emotions with that? Because we've talked about this before.
Yeah, well, I'm going to go back real quickly to the person that you brought up before. What if they want to quit, blah, 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 blah. I said they may not be the right person. I also want to put a caveat to that. It may not be the right time.
Right.
So that's when you say, hey, look, what if we, call you in 3 or 4 months and see if it's something that you want to do then.
Right. Right.
Which at that time they're still 4 years old, but who cares,
Yeah.
right? So, but I just wanted to put that in there. I think again, it just goes back to you do the best that you can do out on the floor. You have your standards that you're going to follow. You hope that everybody, rises to those standards, but that there are going to be those individuals that aren't going to rise to those standards. But I do think that the most important piece is making the program as remarkable as you can make it.
Yeah, I agree there.
And those that are willing and able to see the value in that. Now you have to convey it. I mean, you really do have to convey it. And that's sales, right? You tell people what they, what is it? A good speech, right? I'm going to tell everybody what I'm going to tell them. Then I'm going to tell them. Then I'm going to tell them what I told them.
Right.
I mean, that's how you do a good speech. You're going to tell everybody what you're going to tell them. Then you tell them. Then you tell them what you're going to tell what you just told them.
Right. You recap it too.
That's the same thing. we're going to, tell them what we're going to teach them, and then we're going to teach them, and then we're going to tell them what we taught them.
Right.
By the time we go to tell them what we taught them, whether it's a physical move or even, principles to that physical move, or character development things, by the time you get to tell them what you taught them, you actually can go a little deeper at that point.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It totally does. In fact, that's what I do when I run tests, right? Like I'll run the test, they'll do the test, we take them through the test. At the end, we award the belt, and then I explain to them what they've learned. And I explain why it's so important. And then I hold up the certificate and explain the meaning of the certificate and how deeply that's connected to the belt. So like, sometimes they're like, wow, that was a great speech. I appreciate that. And I understand. Like, and then sometimes they'll even say, I didn't realize he knew so much. Like, I didn't realize that they knew this much. Like, so that's important. I agree with you, Dwayne. I think that it's always recapping, going over, resetting goals, establishing those goals, and so on.
And we all need that, whether it's us as a martial artist running our school, we always have to recap what we're doing, what we've done, our successes, the things that we've gained. And then, it goes back to that whole black belt success system, right? Know what you want, have a plan and a success coach, take consistent action, review your progress, and renew your goals.
I haven't done that in a while. I remember that. We used to do that. We used to do that with the hand signs. Know what you want, have a plan.
We still do.
Action. Yeah.
We still
That's
do.
awesome.
So, and so, but we all need to do that. It's not just our students. We have to do that as well. We need to have that plan and take consistent action. We need a coach, whether it's, you and I helping each other out, or, I'm paying you to be my coach, or whatever it is. We need coaches,
I think that's one thing too that people miss out on as well, is that, and then we have to get out of here. We have like 2 minutes, but I mean, I think that a lot of times martial arts school owners stop learning. So they don't, like, I am always networking with my friends. Like every Wednesday we have breakfast, like 5 of us, 5 different styles of schools. And we sit and we talk about what works, what doesn't work, what struggles we had, and so on. But I think that martial arts schools don't do that enough. And then I also think that they don't find a mentor that could push them to heights, because then we start to level off and we get to where we're used to, and we just keep on running where we're at, and we don't push ourselves further. That's why I love to read, and I love to do seminars and so on.
Well, that we get comfortable.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, we get stagnant. So that's important to not do that. So just real quickly, I think one is go through, when you encounter these problems, look at them as opportunities to solve them for people in the future. How can you pre-frame someone so that this isn't a problem anymore? What can you put into your policy and procedure manuals or manual so that it's not a problem anymore? Remember that, your students need to be told and then taught and then told what they've been taught. But also your parents need to be told what they're going to be taught, and then retold what they were just taught. And that needs to, recycle. I mean, that's got to be rinse and repeat every single time. And I think that, we do that when you've got your base program. We get them into the base program. The next thing that we do is we bring them into the opportunity to get into our leadership program. Right. So that brings them to a higher level of information, a higher level of martial arts skills. And there's other benefits that go along with that. So we are reselling them on the benefits of the martial arts. And then for us, another 6 months to 9 months, even a year after that, depending on the person, there's our storm team, which is, the ability to be able to come in and help teach. And so we're bringing them to another level. So I really think those upgrades not only bring more revenue in for your school, but they also bring in more buy-in into your programs for longevity.
Right.
And so that's where they're, again, being sold and resold, or told and retold, the benefits of what the program is doing for their kids. So go in, any problems that you have, try to ward them off in the future. by examining what those problems are. Those are just opportunities to solve them in advance.
Yeah.
Whether that's pre-framing or putting things into videos or, into your policy and procedures. And then whatever you decide your rules are, just start sticking to them.
Yeah.
You are going to piss some people off. You are going to lose some students. You will gain so much more clarity. You'll gain so much more respect of the individuals that are following those rules and those expectations. And you will eventually get more buy-in, especially when when it goes through the grapevine that you are willing to let go of people that will not follow the system.
Right. And one other thing that I would add, and then we'll let everyone go, is no matter how personal it is, don't take it personal.
Mm-mm.
Like, I guess that's the only advice I can say that is gonna keep your heart from being broken when you're attached to a student and you've given them your all and you went above and beyond, and then they just quit, or they turn on you at the snap of a finger, and all of a sudden you went from being a hero to zero. So I think that we have to just constantly go on. And I once had a parent say to me that you're never gonna succeed and you're always gonna be alone because all you do is think of yourself. And they were like really cruel. And I said, should I listen to what they're saying, or should I look at my track record after almost 30 years this November? I guess they're not really counting 30 years of longevity. They're just talking in the emotion, in the moment, thinking that they know what my outcome of my future is going to be. So I just doubled down and being the best teacher I could be and giving the most service I could give, and making sure that my students are the most important thing and they know it for me as well.
I think the mind shift for me was I made it about the program and not Mr. Brummett.
Okay.
And in order to pull myself out, I mean, it was at one time, it was very, very personality driven. It was my personality.
Right.
And in order for me to step out and be the owner that I wanted to be, I needed to implement things that would make the program remarkable.
Right.
Not Mr. Brummett remarkable.
Right. Right.
I mean, it's still a personality driven business.
Yeah.
But it's not as much as it was before, because it's not honed on my personality. Now, my personality is in every system, in every mat chat, all of those things are part of my personality, but it's more systematized and program based as opposed to and experienced based. I mean, if you look at Disney, right, you look at Disneyland or Disney World, it's experienced based. And all of those things are systematized. It's not, actually Walt Disney himself. He's not there. I mean, he's dead, but he's not there with his personality.
Right.
But it was the concept of his personality put into everything else. And that
became Disney.
And so that was the shift for me, was my personality and my experience and my knowledge or whatever is all into the systems, but it's about the program. It's not about Mr. Brummett.
Awesome. Great, man. What a great call. I think it was a great call, and I hope the listeners loved it. And I appreciate being there with you. It helps me stay motivated too, and work through things. So I appreciate you and always being there as a friend. So thank you for everything and being on the call. And if you want to roll us out with.
Yeah. And just want to remind everybody that, there's a ton of information still on our past episodes. So go to schoolownertalk.com. Again, that's schoolownertalk.com. If you're interested in, the policy and procedures and those type of things in there, click on the search bar and then just type in policy and procedures. And, I think we had 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 podcasts that are up there that you can listen to about those to get some ideas in order to move forward. Those are going to be very, very helpful for you. And then please, please, please share this podcast with other school owners. We do this for free. We have sponsors. We're going to roll out our sponsors here in a second, but we can only reach who we can reach, those that know about us. So we would love for you to share this podcast with other individuals. So thanks, Allie, and I appreciate everything, man.
Take care, Dwayne. See you soon, man. Have a great day.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Martial Arts School Owner Talk Podcast. This would not be possible if it weren't for the support of our amazing sponsors.
please check out EliteInsights.com for all your website needs. LeadHunterMedia.com, your online digital marketer and content provider. Academy Kings BJJ Growth Consulting and Management at GrowMyAcademy.com. SparkMembership.com, the best darn software for school owner manager on the planet. GetKarateStudents.com, a martial arts growth consulting company for all your school systems. We will see you next